So welcome back to the Scafol Surveying Solutions Podcast, the latest episode. Today I'm joined with Phoebe Flook, discussing a brilliant story of timing, resilience and backing herself in the industry. Phoebe started her journey with Sava in March 2020, and not just March 2020, but the very same day the country went into lockdown. Whilst most of the world was hitting pause, she was pressing on and starting a brand new career in surveying. She went on to achieve her AssocRICS in May 2022, which is no small feat considering the backdrop you started in. And since then, she's built her experience properly and methodically, spending around a year with a small building consultancy before moving to a larger home surveying firm, where she worked for 2.5 years. And this past August, I believe, you made the big decision to step out and do your own thing. So, Phoebe, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, start with the big question, the most obvious question. What was the moment or tipping point that made you decide to set up on your own rather than stay employed or go freelance after what some would consider quite a short time as a surveyor?
Yeah, I mean, I've always long-term thought I'd like to do it on my own. I think a lot of people on my cohort in Sava, that was something they wanted to do. And then I kind of thought, oh, actually, that's quite a good idea. And I never fully considered it. But with home surveying, where I worked for the 2.5 years, they had a kind of self-generation model where you could self-generate work through the home kind of name as such. So as I started to pick up more momentum with that, I then actually thought I could probably just do this on my own. So yeah, kind of a bit of both, really. Inspiration from home and then kind of a long-term plan as well.
So I spoke to a couple of surveyors about starting her own, and there is some like not conflicting opinions, but very different opinions depending who you speak to, because it's one thing continuing to do what you're doing but on your own, but what gave you the kind of confidence that you had the knowledge? I guess again, you went through Sava, which is a very, very, very good breeding ground for surveyors, but what gave you the confidence in your own kind of knowledge of building pathology and all that extra cool stuff we should know?
Yeah. Well, I think when I first started, I worked for a small building consultancy. So it was really kind of one-on-one training with the lead surveyor owner of the business. So I feel like I learned so much in that year. And then with home, it's a lot more high volume. So, you're doing a lot of surveying. So I think over the kind of first 3 years of my surveying, I had really intense training on building pathology and knowledge, and then I was really able to put it into practice by doing it at quite a high volume. So I think by the time I'd finished that 2.5 years at home, I'd done so many surveys and I feel like I'd learned so much, and I knew that you can kind of not rely, that's the wrong word, but you can ask other people, there's like support groups and WhatsApps. And I've got friends who are surveyors now, and we'll just text each other like, well, what do you think to this? So it doesn't feel like you're just going off into the wild and with no kind of support whatsoever.
No, so I get that. I'm on loads of cool, interesting WhatsApp groups, and sometimes it's just someone throws a photo out, asks a question, and then people come back with very different opinions. But weirdly, they're not always like, some of them are both right, even though they said different things. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
When you first started out, what were the biggest unknowns, or I use the word fears loosely, that you had about launching your own practice? And did reality compare to what you expected?
I mean, fear was definitely a word that resonates with me, because I had a lot of fear, and I think it was one of those things where I wanted to go on my own, and I'd be like, oh, I'll do it next month. I'll do it next. I kept pushing it back, and then I was like, right, I've just got to do it. But I think my main fear, probably the same as anyone that sets up a business, is, am I going to have clients? Am I going to have this? That simple. Is this business actually going to be a business? I think that was my main fear, I guess. But as well, I think just having to spin different plates that you've not had to spin before, like marketing, accounting, all the things that you don't have to do when you're not just a surveyor, but a surveyor in a practice. You get your jobs on your iPad, you do it, you submit it, and it's done. You don't have to think about anything else.
Yeah, a few years back, I similarly started my own surveying firm. I had actually quite a similar journey to you. I didn't go through the Sava route, but I started in a kind of small consultancy with a mentor that was very much a one-to-one time with. And then I moved on to a larger kind of similar sized company to home surveying at the time. And then my biggest fear is definitely a fear. It was an element of imposter syndrome, which I soon got over, I think. But also where to get the kind of business from, because you know, it's not like an unlimited tap. If it was, everyone would do it. So it was not just, oh, I need to be a great surveyor. That's fine. And I've always backed myself in that, but it's more, I need to be a good businessman and a good business generation. And it's that side of the business that is a bit new. So can you talk us through the kind of steps you went on in regards to how you built that kind of client base and how you started generating your own business?
Yeah, so I mean, with home surveying, like I said earlier, with you being able to self-generate the work, I kind of got the ball rolling as such with home surveying. So mainly my whole business is actually based off estate agent and solicitor referrals. So I have like dabbled with lead generation websites, but it's all been referrals to me. So it has literally just been a case. Sorry, the dog. She's tapping me like, talk to me. Sorry, as I say, I always focused on building up connections with estate agents and solicitors, and then they would then refer work to me, and it would just become a bit of a referral partnership. So I actually set up an Instagram in 2021, I think, and that's how I've built my whole surveying business, basically, is through and I don't think I know any other surveyor that does it like that. And I think it's such a good way. And I think it should be something more, I think especially independents should jump on, because so many estate agents operate via Instagram. Some solicitors do, but that's kind of more like LinkedIn. But yeah, then I just connect with them and then we build up a referral partnership. That's kind of how it, and then when I set up on my own, obviously my referral partners came with me, home were fine with that. And then I've just carried on building it since, really, just connecting with people who can send me work.
No, I mean, it sounds very simple and very obvious. It's interesting what you said about Instagram, because a lot of people, when I first started, I was always more LinkedIn, because it's your very much your business connection. I think that's why I messaged you on as well.
You did.
But Instagram, it is also just as particularly, you know, it's not necessarily where you'd link up with other surveyors, I guess, but you probably do. But it's a good way of reaching out to other businesses, because the other businesses have the clients that you want, and they probably found them through Instagram. So actually, when you put two and two together, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, no, that's interesting. You briefly mentioned like lead generation sites. So what are your thoughts on lead generation sites? Because I think they've got a place, but then also there's an element where some people don't like the idea of them because they feel like they do drive the price down for the service that we kind of surveyors provide, which isn't necessarily a good thing all the time.
Yeah, I think obviously lead generation sites, you know, naturally people, that's kind of the only place where your prices are basically being put in front of a client saying, this is where you sit. There's 3 that are cheaper, 2 that are more expensive. And at the end of the day, the clients who are motivated by price will just always go for that. A bit like car insurance or anything like that. You know, I know on Compare the Market, I'll go for the cheapest, assuming it's all okay. I know that's what I would do. So not with a survey, but I understand the psychology of having the prices there, and you just kind of, you know, I get it. So I think, you know, if you are putting yourself on the lead generation website, you have to just kind of make peace that you are not going to probably do so well on them if you are positioning yourself as more of a kind of not high price, but, you know, higher than the lower prices. And I think you have to kind of accept that if, okay, I'm happy that my service is cheaper than the market, I'll go on the lead gen. I think it's the perfect place for you to go, and you'll find the right client as well there. You know, it kind of matches up. If you are more a high price, you know, independents and things like that, I think you're probably best just to give them a miss. And they're quite labor intensive as well, like having to phone up the client, follow it. You know, once you get the lead, then you have to do all the work to even book it in, even if they're interested. So yeah, they're okay. I probably won't use them again, but I appreciate they're right for certain businesses.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think also some people use them for what they call gap fillers. So for me, that name
Yeah,
suggests it's not their main line of work, but they're really cool. You can turn them on and off like a tap. Um,
that's
and
it.
then obviously it's down to your kind of business conversion. How good are you converting leads?
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's a place for them, and there's some really good ones out there as well, I think. But
Yeah,
like you say,
definitely.
it depends. It depends where you align your business as well, and what kind of clients you're looking to,
Yeah.
and how you kind of price yourself. So no, so it's always interesting to hear other people's feelings on that, because there's always mixed opinions about their place in the industry. But
Yeah,
yeah,
some people are really against them, and I think it's. I think they're right for the right business and the right purpose and the right time, aren't they? I think it just, there's no need to kind of shun them away. I think they're important because it's a way people can still access a survey. We're trying to, as an industry, get people to have surveys, so I don't think we should then try and kind of cut off avenues for people accessing it, to be honest.
no, I agree. I agree. So looking at the more kind of practical side of things, when you set up your business early on, how did you address things like regulations, insurances, systems, branding, all the kind? I mean, some of it's quite cool. My favorite bit was setting up my own business and making my own brand and all that, that cool
Yeah.
stuff. But then the scarier stuff is the insurance and required
Yeah.
regulations and stuff. What steps did you take to make sure that you were compliant and
Yeah.
out there, and all those really important
Fun.
steps
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people often overlook?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I had a to-do list that was about 4 pages long, and it was just like, do this, look into this, research this. But a few of my friends who are self-employed surveyors, we would just like sit on a call and I'd be like, what did you do? And we would just kind of feed it off to each other. And then funnily enough, now I've passed that list on to someone else that's doing it. So I think the list is doing the rounds. But, I think I just had to break it down and kind of look at, the RIC side of things, getting it regulated, making sure I've got everything I need on that. And I just had to, well, I kind of broke it down in my mind and, make sure the accounting's set up right. Have I got the right software? And just kind of look at what every single thing that feeds into my business. Am I clear on what it needs? I think it's a dangerous territory when you don't really understand it and you kind of just like tick in the box. I'll try to really wrap my head around everything and then do it, basically. That's kind of, yeah, maybe that's maybe not a best explanation, but yeah, I just did a list and kind of worked through it basically and learned on other people.
No, I mean, it's a really good explanation. I think you've clearly utilised the kind of, for lack of a better word, the support network around you that have got experience in it, and you've created a list that you feel is probably in priority order as well. You look like
Yeah.
looking at how clean your house is, you look like a very organised person. So I can imagine there was all kinds of highlighters involved.
Yeah,
Um,
I sent the list to my friend and he was like, are you kidding me? 'Cause it was just like page one, page two. But yeah, you probably could condense it into one page. But going back to the fear, I had the fear that I was going to miss something or do something terribly wrong, basically.
No, so I remember, again, reflecting back on my time, I just remember feeling like I was throwing money at people and I wasn't quite sure why, but I know I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
to.
why?
Yeah,
No, I
Ricks,
think this
have
is
some
right.
money, have some more money,
Yeah,
Ricks.
yeah,
Insurance, have some money. And I was thinking, I'm giving them all that. What does
yeah.
that
Is this
mean?
right?
Everyone's telling me I should have done that, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. What about websites and stuff? Do you say you're very much based on Instagram and stuff? Did you do the
Yeah,
website design and all that?
yeah. I mean, I didn't do it myself. I'm not very kind of techie. I'm not very creative, really. Like I'm not. I wish I was, but it's not really my skill. I had like a few ideas of how I wanted it to look, but I got someone to do my website for me. I came up with my logo, but that's about as far as my creativity took me, to be honest. And then I let someone else who's much better kind of create my website. And do all of that, really. But I did really enjoy that process because you literally watch it come to life.
Yeah.
Like the insurances and things like that. That's what made me feel a bit more nervous. That have I chose the right thing? Have I, when you have to fill in a really long form, and I kept
Yeah.
reading it back, like, have I got it wrong? Have I missed anything? But I think it's okay.
No. So being honest, how long did you take designing your own logo, because I remember this vividly. I thought about starting my own business. It was probably about a 12-month period. I thought about it. 11 of those months was me deciding what my logo was going to look like. And the last month was me thinking, actually, yeah, let's just do it. So
Yeah, and
that
yeah, that's. I mean, to be fair, it didn't take me too long. I created it and then I was kind of messing about with it. And then, funnily enough, when I was getting my nails done, my nail lady suggested a little change, and we changed the colour of the full stop. And I was like, we've done it. We've done it. So I can't even take the credit really for the logo, can I? But yeah, it didn't take too long. I think I don't like to drag it on. I thought, right, just get this done, else I'll be doing it forever. So I'd put off going self-employed for long enough. So I thought, right, I need to do this.
Fair enough. So what challenges have surprised you the most since set up on your own, and how have those shaped the way that you run your business? Because obviously you go through everything, your to-do list, your tick list and everything like that. But surely there was a couple of things that have kind of caught you off guard or caught you in the hop that you've had to kind of adjust and adapt to.
Yeah, I think just having to do it all, I hadn't actually anticipated how much time it takes to book in a survey. Just those little bits. But when you have maybe 4 surveys that you need to book whilst you've been on site, you got home, you've done an hour then of admin, and then you've still got reports. I never really accounted for those admin hours. And literally I've just hired my sister to help me with my admin. So that's how I solved the problem, because it can't go anywhere, and I never want it. I don't want clients to have to wait a couple of days for their terms, or even a day. I want things to be done like that, and that's really important to me. So rather than kind of making my days longer, I've brought Kitty, my sister, on board basically to help.
No, it's fair enough. I mean, this was a perfect opportunity for a shameless Scafol plug where we do your admin for you, but I'm not going to do that.
There we go.
I'm not going to
No,
go
of
into
course
that. How is it working with family? I had my wife working with me, and it was actually really nice, but it's sometimes hard to stop the work chat and start the what you're used to talking with them about.
Yeah, I feel like it would be really different working with, like, I could not work with my boyfriend, that's for sure. But and he could work with me, probably more importantly. Very, very positive about. But I think with the sister, she's my little sister as well. So we're so close. It's just I'll send her what to do. She'll do. It's so laid back. It's been fine, to be fair. I think, yeah, no kind of crosswords yet.
No, and do you find working for yourself for your own business, how are you finding the work-life balance? That was the big appeal to me. It didn't necessarily, in the first couple of months, it didn't come to what I thought it would be. It kind of set me back, because you're like, I can choose, I can do this and that. And like you said, all of a sudden you realise that there's a whole boatload of work that you didn't know existed and other people were doing for you. But then I managed to find the balancing act in the end, and I don't regret it at all. So how was that for you?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, literally in the last couple of months, I've definitely got a better work-life balance. That's mainly because obviously January is pretty quiet. January was really quiet for me, and then Feb it's starting to pick up. So because I don't have as many bookings, then I've got a better work-life balance. But I think my problem is, because, like you said, because it's yours, I don't want to say no. I don't want to turn work away. So, in kind of, when was it? I think it was September and October. I was doing so much work, and my work-life balance was non-existent. I was thinking, I thought I did this for a better work-life balance, and I was on my laptop till 11 o'clock at night. But I think now I have had a taste of work-life balance, these last couple of months. It now is making me have a more conscious effort when I book jobs in. I'm not squeezing it in because I'm only round the corner, or, just doing it on a Saturday because I can. I am actually thinking, no, I'll give myself a break that day, kind of thing. So yeah, I'm learning. I just find it hard to say no.
No, I get that. Particularly when it's your own business. So, final kind of question for surveyors listening who are thinking about taking the leap themselves. What advice would you give them? Or, if you were to give a top 3, and you were taking into account your kind of knowledge of the industry, knowledge of the job, all those kind of practical things we talked about, regulations and compliance and stuff like that, and branding and all that, what would your kind of top 3 tips be to someone considering taking the leap, I guess, is the best word of saying?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really obvious, but I think having a really clear kind of understanding of where your work's going to come from and what needs to be put in to get that work out. So for example, if you are going to be using lead generation websites, are you aware of the process, then how to kind of convert that lead into a business, a sale. If you're maybe relying on panel work, how much is needed of you, what's the turnaround time, having a really kind of clear understanding of what your day-to-day will look like and how your business will come in. I think that's really important, because when I first started, I rely on referrals, and I kind of had a awful thought when I left, thinking, what happens if they stop sending me work? And I was like, then I'll have nothing. So I think having that kind of, but then obviously when you look at the numbers, I was like, no, it'll be okay. They've not stopped anytime soon, but you just think, oh no. But I think having that really clear, okay, this is where it's coming in. And I don't really know what else. I think that's I think it's important, because I know spoke to some people that will rely on lead gen, and then they'll say, oh, it's not working, I'm not getting any work, or the clients aren't coming back to me. And maybe it's because they're pricing too high, or they're not phoning the client enough, or whatever it might be. So I think if you are relying on specifically lead generation, is probably being super, super clear with the process and accepting that I don't know what the kind of conversion rate is for each lead gen, but kind of getting comfortable with, okay, yeah, maybe one in five will convert or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. That I say, it goes back to you're not just a surveyor. You can be some surveyors are very introverts. Sorry, terrible England.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but they'll go around methodically, look at a property, and then they'll give a call afterwards, very blunt call. This is this, yeah. Which is fine. But then all of a sudden, when you have your own business and you're chasing leads, you actually do become a bit of a salesman, and you've got to sell your wares, sell why you are better than other people, why obstacles. Why would I pay an extra 200 quid for yours when so and so down the road is doing it for this? And you're like, all of a sudden, you're having to demonstrate to someone why you do what you do, why you're better than the other company down the road who are charging less, and what sets you apart. So that's a very interesting point, because it goes back to that not knowing about the extra workload that encompasses in that as well, doesn't it? It's a different side of someone that I'm rubbish at chasing people. I'll tell someone something, and I don't want to be that person that pesters them. I know when someone chases me, it's irritating, and I don't want to be that person.
Well, that's it. Yeah, when I used the lead gen website, and I kind of marked, okay, follow up in 3 days. And then when it would come to that day 3, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be annoying.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse, is it, when you're like, oh God. So I just didn't want to be that person. I have got another tip, actually. It's just come to me when you said 3. I don't know if I can do 3, but I've got a second one. I think it's really good to set up an Instagram account. I know that some people, whenever I say this, I see them kind of go, oh God. But if you do want to connect with estate agents, especially, I think that's such a good way of having your surveying firm, because you're not up against other leads. They come directly to you. The conversion rate is extremely high. So if you set up an Instagram, connect with agents, just share what you're doing day to day, talk about anything. I think that's a really good way as well of connecting with estate agents and some solicitors.
No, I agree. Weirdly, I've recently set one up for Scafol as well, and it's amazing how quickly it's got followers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not quite an influencer yet, but the followers grew quite quickly. So there obviously is people on there that are interested, and if they're interested, it means that I'm in the right place. So last chance for a third tip, or are you empty now?
Follow my Instagram.
follow your Instagram. Yeah, no, drop that. I'll drop your Instagram tag in your in the description. No, Phoebe, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of the Scafol podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and there are some genuinely really useful tips for. You'd be surprised how many people out there, whether they've been a surveyor for 20 years or a surveyor for 3-4 years, that might be having this kind of wiggling away in the back of their minds. So it's really interesting to speak to someone. I've spoken to a couple of people about it before, but they were 3, 4, 5 years deep into the process, whereas yourself, it's still, was it August last year?
Yeah, August, literally 6 months, yeah.
you're still on that journey. So it's really, really, really good to see how you've got to where you are. I guess the final question: what's next for you then? You're 6 months in. What's the next step? What's the next big hopes and dreams for yourself?
The hopes and dreams. I mean, I'm just doing a retrofit course at the moment, a level 5 retrofit course. So kind of looking at the energy efficiency side of things. I would like to bring on some other surveyors, but I think on more of like a self-employed basis rather than building it like that. I don't really know. I think I love my surveying firm, but then I'm interested in energy efficiency. I'm interested in property investment. So I don't. It's difficult. I think I've told myself in August this year, I'm a year in, and then I'll make a plan of action. I'm just going to get through the first year.
No, it's really interesting. It's interesting, especially with like the home and buying reform going on. You've also got the Renters Reform Bill, which is all to do with lettings of properties, IOAB's law, but then also the big thing in 2030, all rented properties have to have a minimum of C in the energy efficiency. I live in Cornwall, and there's going to be some very, very drastic measures, and there's a £6,000 minimum spend before you can get an exemption fee on it as well. So retrofitting is going to be a massive part. You think of how many properties are rented out. So, and this, I think, don't quote me on this, but if you start spending that £6,000 now, it will all go towards it in the end. So rather than spending it all in 1 month, you can spread it over the next 4 years. So it's definitely a good road to tread, that one is as well, with lots of potential moving forward. So no, well, Phoebe, thank you ever so much. Again, as I said, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.